Hello. So, my name is Shawana Muse, and I'll be doing my children's literature math lesson over the book Fractions in Disguise. So, I will be working with a group of fifth graders, and the title of my lesson is Building Fraction Understanding. We're trying to be able to describe fractions and perform operations with fractions to solve relevant mathematical problems using apart-whole strategies. My I can statement for the students is I can compare, add, subtract up to three fractions with different numerators and or different denominators by using a variety of tools and strategies. The prior knowledge that the students are going to need will be knowledge of whole numbers as they relate to greater than and less than and equal to. Students will need to understand that addition and multiplication increases the value of a number and understand how division in relation to fraction decreases the value. They will need knowledge of a number line, how to group like sets together, and students should also understand that fractions can be decomposed and composed of many fractions, and they will need prior experience with comparing fractions less than one. The teaching strategies I'm going to use are direct instruction. Will help students develop the fraction sense by comparing and ordering fractions. We will read aloud the fractions in disguise. And just a little bit about this book. It's about a kid named George Cornelius Factor. And he says that some kids collect everything from baseball cards to marbles to coins, but he collects fractions. And just to read an excerpt of how funny it is, just in the beginning, he says that I've been collecting them for exactly 2/3 of my life. In my bedroom, shelves full of fraction covers 3/4 of the wall. Maybe it's because I was born during half the moon. Or maybe it's because I'm 1/4 genius, 1/4 stubborn, 1/3 determined, and 1/6 eccentric. But for me, it all adds up to one thing. I can't get enough of those darn fractions. So, this book, he goes to an auction and he sees pictures on the wall, but he calls out fractions when he sees anything. It always has to do with a fraction. He even talks about multiplying fractions, adding and subtracting them. On page 11, he talks about what a reducer is, so basically how to reduce strategies or simplify them. So if you are teaching fifth graders or even fourth graders, I think this is a really good book to read to them. So we will read aloud this book. For small group instruction, I will have the students who need extra help, who may not be where they need to be or not grasping the concepts. We will use manipulatives and visual aids. We will have real life examples like word problems that include real life scenarios. We will use shapes that we cut into equal parts from maybe foam or paper plates or something like that. And the formative assessment, we will have before and after the lesson by means of questions and independent practice. So, the introduction to the lesson, I will start by showing the students that I brought a cake and pizza for the class. And I'm going to ask them how we can divide the cake and the pizza so that everyone can have a slice of either the pizza or the cake, not both. And so to activate this prior knowledge, we're going to have the students be able to count how many students are in the class present, collect data, maybe using a table to make fractions to see who wants the cakes and who wants pizza. And then I will ask the students, since we're dividing pizza and cake, what do you think we're going to talk about today? And I will give them the I can statement and then introduce the book. And before reading the book, I'm going to have the students listen for vocabulary words that they hear that they know relates to fractions. My teaching procedures that I will use, we will use some fractions from the book once I've read the book. We will use fractions by asking students to add fractions and show me with manipulatives. Like I'll write some of the fractions from the book that I see on the board. I'll have them choose 2 or 3 of those fractions and add them. And with the manipulatives, they will show me the sum that they get by adding the fractions. And also in groups of 2 or 3 students, they will be asked to create a word problem with 3 to 4 fractions in the word problem and then solve it. I will do the introduction for 5 minutes to the lesson. Our direct instruction will be about 10 minutes, and it will include a YouTube video talking about adding and subtracting fractions. And I have the link here. The guided practice will be about 15 minutes where we use the manipulatives. The independent practice will be this worksheet, which will be like my formative assessment to see who actually grasped what we was talking about. And then the closure will be about 5 minutes. And so the closure of the lesson, after the students complete the worksheet, we will review the learning target that we have for the lesson, our I can statement of comparing fractions. And we will see, then we will go back to the cake and pizza because now it's time to eat that after we've done our lesson, and see the data that the students collected and see how we need to divide the cake and pizza. How does it need to be cut? And they would do this by demonstrating first with the manipulatives, and show me how the cake will be cut if we're going to have 5 out of 8 students eat the cake, something like that. And so the assessments, as I said, will be adding and subtracting with manipulatives, creating the word problems, and the worksheet that they would do during independent practice. And these assessments will be aligned with the target because students will be required to show their work using the manipulatives, completing the worksheet. And these, by doing this, they're going to help the teacher, help me be able to see who's able to add and subtract fractions with the unlike denominators. And for my modifications or accommodations for my students that have individual needs, my students that may have a learning disability or an IEP or slower learners, they will work with me in a small group during the independent practice at a table, and they would not be required to complete the whole worksheet. They would do half of it, 5 of the 10 problems. For my gifted students who are above average, who've shown that they grasp the concept and are able to add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators, they will be given the option to work independently or in a group using a choice board. And the choice board would give them an option to either write a story using fractions or create a fraction worksheet and complete it, or they can make a 5 to 6 slide PowerPoint explaining today's learning target. So that is my lesson for fractions in disguise.